see here, and we are live. Oh, wait, no, still setting up. Never mind. Take that back. Okay, there we go. It should be live now. Okay, well, welcome everybody to the Power of Connection chat, my live stream across LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook. My name is Bob Humor. I'm a professional speaker for the past 15 years, 5-time TEDx speaker, and Inc. Magazine Top 100 Leadership Speaker, and I also am the founder of DYPB Discovery Personal Brand. And with that, that's something that I've been doing for a long time, and I've run events here and there, and everywhere, and that's kind of how I know Lee and Bill. And what we're doing today is we're actually going to talk about our event that we're doing, which is for our community builders. And we invite you to join us. We're going to hear from the speakers. We're going to hear from the organizers, and we'd love to invite you to share your comments, share your thoughts. And if you want to ask a question about culture shifts, you want to ask a question about how we're dealing with coming out of the pandemic, how community organizations, community builders, and leaders are navigating dealing with this, then we invite you to share your thoughts. If you like what you're hearing, you can tag people. You can also click the icon, the like, heart, the light bulb, all those different things. I see Eugene's here. Good morning from Calgary. That's great. And maybe I'll start by getting each person here to introduce themselves. So let's start with actually Lee. And actually, Lee, maybe you can introduce yourself and also tell us a bit more about what our community builder is all about.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having us. So I'm Lee Mitchell. I'm the founder of Be Happy HR, your diverse talent hive and Women in Biz Network. And I am very passionate about all things diversity and inclusion and making equitable workplaces. In terms of our community builders, we started it in I guess it was in the early start of the pandemic. I can't remember the date. I was trying to do that there, but it wasn't coming to me. So I'm just going to go with the beginning of the pandemic. And essentially, Bill and I and Bobby were talking about how isolated we were feeling, how down we were, how being a business owner through these challenging times was really difficult. And we thought, if we're feeling this way, there's probably other people that are out there that are really trying to navigate this crisis and how to move forward to be successful, both in workplaces and as entrepreneurs. So we launched a series of events. We started with our community builders in crisis. So we focused on what the crisis was about, what the challenges were, and what were some possible solutions. And then we followed up with another event called our community builders moving beyond crisis. And essentially, the world was starting to reopen a little bit, and we were talking about, what that was looking like and what the future might hold. And both of our events have been extremely popular. And now we're following up with our third event on October 20th called our community builders, and we're focusing on cultural shifts in organizations. So essentially, we're talking about, how has the world changed and what is coming and how is it impacting the cultures within organizations and also in entrepreneurial ecosystems as well. So that's essentially what we're doing. So that's October 20th from 5:30 to 7:30 EDT. Thank you.
Yeah, and maybe one of us will put the link in the comments section on the LinkedIn live stream. If you're watching on Twitter, you can also watch on LinkedIn and go to my LinkedIn profile and you see it going on there. Also, people are watching, so I want to say right away, if you're watching this, tell us where you're from. Like, comment below, let us know. We want to engage you. Comment below, let us know where you're from. Where are you watching this thing? Are you from North America, South America, Australia, Africa, Asia, Europe? I'd love to hear from where you're coming in from. Let's keep going on and do some introductions. Let's go to Bill. Bill, please do an introduction.
Thank you, Bobby. Hey, Lee, did you say October 20th, 5:30 to 7:30? Because I'm going to be there. Otherwise, I'd be square, right?
Okay. You betcha.
Hey, everybody. I'm Bill Banham. A little bit about me. I like lumberjack type shirts, I guess, because that's what I'm wearing today. I am the founder of the HR Gazette magazine, which was established in 2014, and the HR Chat Show, which was started in 2016. 16 and has had around about 140,000 downloads so far. And we've had some awesome organizations on there like NASA and the United Nations and ADP and SAP and people like that. One of my most recent ventures is with the wonderful Christopher Bjorling, who you're going to meet in a minute. And we host a new show. We've done the first season where we've just released a second season called The People and Performance Podcast, which is focused on everything to do with employee performance and engagement. I'm also the co-founder of an event series called Innovate Work. Those of you based in the GTA may be familiar with Innovate Work. We've done events since 2017, and we've had around about 6,500 people attend those across Canada, but also in the US, the Caribbean. I say Caribbean for the North Americans, the UK and Australia. What else about me? My favorite color is yellow because that's my football team's color. And my secret superpower is that I can play the didgeridoo. Thank you very much.
Sweet. There's a masterclass in personal branding for you by Bill Banham. All right, well done. And let's move on for Chris. Chris, please welcome you to the stage, and please share a bit about yourself, and maybe tell us a bit about yourself and your organization.
Great, thanks. Chris Bjorling. I'm the founder, president, and CEO of Fidello Inc. Been doing that company for about 35 years, and had a good time working in HR across the globe with different organizations and different people. As Bill said, he and I hooked up, and we're doing the People and Performance podcast series. We're having fun with that. We're getting great guests coming on board, getting a chance to talk to them for 15, 20 minutes. Glean some of their expertise and move forward that way. It's always a wonderful moment for that. Now, I just need to clarify something because Bill referenced North American audience. Just to put it in clarity, football for him is round ball. Football for me is an oblong ball. Okay, so I am a huge American football fan. Love it. And in fact, for my Canadian friends on the call here, one of my quarterback, when I played football, I was a center. My quarterback actually won a Grey Cup and for up in Canada and was MVP for 1 year. So yeah, fun stuff. Bill didn't even know that. Look at him down there. He's like shaking his head like, oh, I didn't know that. Wow. Yeah, I just can't handle a 30-yard end zone. That's all, or 30 meters or whatever we call it up there. But anyway, so that's where we're at. And the fun fact is I'm a father of 7. And I've told each of them, I said, you haven't consistently proven the fact that I should not have you in my family. So I've got them all. So
that is amazing. And what are the age range of those 7 kids?
That's a technical question, Bobby. We go from almost 30 down to 15. So
okay,
4 boys, 3 girls. So yeah,
right.
they're all the ones that have left the nest are doing great. And the ones that are here, we're hoping we're going to get them off on a good foot as well.
That's the Brady Bunch. It's amazing. Okay, great. Well, that's awesome. So let's start off with the conversation again. And people are signing in here. Helga's saying hello from Cape Town, South Africa. If you want to participate, by all means, share comments below and ask your questions. That's totally fine. Or even just talk to each other. We have people that are networking, which is great. Let's talk a bit about why culture shifts was the thing that we talked about. I mean, I'll kind of go first with this, and I'll open it. Anybody wants to share their thoughts. I do a lot of training and speaking, and so when I go to companies, one of the things that happens, I'll be very honest, like my speaking industry collapsed, right, during COVID, and so I lost a lot of clients in the business, and it was hard. I transitioned to doing more coaching and things like that, and online stuff, but it was still hard to rebuild and do what I need to do, which is also why I try to collaborate with the 2 people here to do more stuff for our communities. But one of the things I noticed that because we've been in a virtual world for almost 2 years, and now we're getting back into the workspace, shifts have happened, and culture change is a big thing. And so, have organizations really done what it takes to understand exactly how people are feeling? I mean, a good example of this is I do polls on LinkedIn all the time, and one of the big polls is, what do you want for back to work? Do you want 5 days a week in person, 5 days a week at home, or do you want to split somewhere 2, 3, 1, 4? And everything was completely mixed, right? There are people firmly staunch. I'm staying home, man. I love this. Like my brother, for example, he says he's been thriving being at home. He loves it. He's lost weight. He feels less stress. And, like it's been great for him. Other people are like, no, I want to get back to work, man. I miss my friends, I miss my family, all that kind of stuff. And other people, of course, have learned to appreciate what it is, the balance of the two. And so they want to mix it up and stuff. So I think that to me is a big reason why we need to have this discussion, because how are employers going to understand the importance of understanding these shifts and how people are feeling? I mean, that's kind of my take. What's your take on the topic and why it's important? Anyone can go ahead.
I'll go, Bobby, if you don't mind.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, please, go ahead.
So over at the HR Chat podcast, we release on average 3 episodes per week. Okay. It takes up lots of my time. It's audio because I've got the perfect face for radio. I'm consistently having conversations with people telling me that, and these are leaders of organizations or senior HR pros usually, and they're consistently telling me, Bill, things are different now. Things have changed. And that's the purpose of this event really, is to understand how things have changed, whether that's, for example, the rise of the hybrid workforce, whether that's talking about what Bobby was just mentioning there, a preference for work from home now, and what that's done to create the situation we're all calling the Great Resignation, whether that's talking about people who want to do something entirely different and reinvent their careers, and how organizations can still attract talent when so many other people are going off to do their own thing. So we're going to try and capture some of those concepts and a bunch more on, I think Lee said the 20th of October at 5:30 to 7:30.
Awesome. Anyone else? Chris, why don't you go ahead and share your thoughts?
Yeah, sure. You're right on this concept of, the culture and the way we've done business has changed since the pandemic. It was kind of like, oh, wow, where do my customers go? And they're kind of all being reactive to figuring out how to change things and to put life in order and create that work opportunity for people to work from home and to go forward. It was interesting. I was talking to, I got to be on a panel about a year ago, and I had a major general that was over all of HR for the US Army. And it was great when you look at the culture, very command chain oriented, very much structured, very much everybody on the same location all the time. And he said, yeah, it was interesting. We have 3,500 HR people. And he goes, at the time, we probably had 10 to 15 that worked remotely. And now we have them all working remotely because we can't get in our facility. And, just to see an organization that has been so, static and, resistant to change, make that modification. And he was admitting too with the other panelists, like, look, we can't go back to the way it was. So what is that happy medium? And so it's that cultural thing. So Bobby, when you talk about your survey with people with mixed bag, we're going to have it all over the place. There's going to be some people that just miss that environment, that social rubbing shoulders that need to be there. And, is that your audience? Is it not? I don't know, when you're working in the workplace, or is it somebody that has the mix, or do you accommodate both? I think one of the biggest things, especially with the Great Resignation, or as it was termed in another conversation I had this morning, the Great Awakening out there for people. So, when you're thinking about it, it was kind of like, hey, maybe I don't need to be here. Maybe I need to do something different. I think that balancing of the world is going to happen, and your culture is going to shift to be in support of that. And it needs to shift. It can't be the same way as before, before the pandemic. We have to be more tolerant of the work from home. We have to be tolerant for, I think that the chance to do Zoom type meetings like this, where, you see somebody's cat in the background, or their dog, or their kids, or their grandparents, or whatever. It personalized everybody. That alone is a cultural shift for us all to figure that out. You've gone as a workplace persona that we had, like I sit in the corner office. Well, look, you've got kids too. Isn't that strange? Isn't that cool? So just the humanization of the times is changing our culture for what we're doing as we're moving forward. And the successful ones, the successful companies and organizations are going to embrace that and try to leverage for the best. That's my thought.
Love that. I love the idea of humanization of our employees. And yeah, it's very intimate, right? I mean, I of course I have a cover photo here, but typically if I take it off, you'll see that I'm here in my living room and this is where I live, and so it's a very intimate to invite people into your homes or your offices or your dens or wherever it might be as you're speaking in a meeting, no matter what level of executive you are. I think that's really a powerful thing. It's far more intimate than what happens when you meet for a coffee at let's say a Starbucks or some public cafe or whatever. That's different, or the office space. But here's like it's home, so you can have more deeper conversations. Lee, what are your thoughts?
I think the other issue is definitely mental health. I think, when we're at home, we're also juggling things with relationships, noise levels. There's a lot on the go, and people are under a tremendous amount of stress. Women in particular have been known to handle more of the household chores and the child care issues. So this year has been particularly challenging for a lot of people, especially women and women of color. So I think that's something that really needs to be addressed in culture, and I think in the cultural organizations of the places that we work. I think that also, just having a sense of humor throughout all of this, I think creating a sense of well-being and a little bit of calm and peace. I noticed that there was someone who I know who placed a picture of himself and his dog on his LinkedIn stream because they're promoting a healthy a work challenge, being healthy while you're at work challenge, right? So that might be walking throughout the day, or as Bobby mentioned, a lot of people are actually enjoying having time at home because they have more time for exercise. Maybe they're getting more in shape. So I think there's lots of opportunities for positive change. And we have to sort of negate the challenges that we're having with creative solutions, thinking outside of the box, and honestly, a sense of humor. I'm loving all of your sense of humor. It's what I think keeps us going throughout our work days.
Yeah, and I want to address the one that's also important to me. You mentioned the idea of diversity and inclusion, right? I think that's a big issue for a lot of people. Diversity and inclusion has always been a big issue, and I think one of the things that happened during the pandemic, of course, was the George Floyd incident, which then fired up again more discussions and the opportunity for awareness and building ideas around how do we do better with diversity, inclusion, and equity. And I'm a huge proponent of that kind of stuff. I talk about it a lot on LinkedIn and other platforms as well. So that one's quite important to me. And so, I'm curious though, if there's people in the audience who want to comment on, what they see are some of the biggest challenges there. But I'd like to kind of explore that a little bit more. So, and also again, we're talking about this event we're doing on October 20th. It's a free event. It's a free virtual event. You can sign up. The link is in the comments. We'd love to have you join us. There's some amazing speakers there, including Chris and a bunch of others that I can't name off the top of my head, but I know that there's Pam Ross and there's Dan Kelly and there's Annette Salfarlie. And if I miss anybody, you guys can let me know who they are. But you can check out the event link. But we're going to have a great discussion. We're going to have a panel discussion. We're also going to have a couple of speakers who are going to do short talks for about 8 minutes. So. And there's going to be a lot of networking as well. So we definitely want you to be there. When we look at diversity and inclusion, I mean, what would be some of the cultural shifts that, we're seeing now in the workplace? And I'm open to anybody else that wants to start with us.
I think I'll just chime in here. I think it's an opportunity. It's been an opportunity for us to be a little more conscious of our efforts of what we're doing to open, it up so that we're being more inclusive of everybody and making sure the opportunities that are there for people regardless of whatever condition they're in or whatever shape they're in or whatever gender or whatever. So it's really given us an opportunity to stop and think, whereas before we kind of forced through some things. I think at least down when I work with the states ones, we always have these equal employment opportunity reports we have to put out there. Yeah, that's reporting. The reality of it comes in, and we had a speaker we were working on our podcast the other day brought up the word belonging, and she added to DE&I a B, which was belonging. And I thought it was brilliant because it's really around, do you feel like you belong? And I think we need to, when we're looking at these cultural shifts, is are we making it a belonging space for everybody? Or can people feel like they belong in the organization, not just included, not just added, but do they belong? Do they feel like their contributions are there, that their personality is being respected and honored, their person is being respected and honored, and moving forward along those lines? So I think it's really an opportunity for us to stop and think and be more aware. And, you know, it's fun to see all of the new officers coming in, so that we're really thinking about making this happen versus giving it lip service, which I think has happened in the past.
Great. I love what you said there, and particularly the whole aspect about belonging. I think that's really powerful. Just fantastic thoughts there. Anyone else want to comment?
Yeah, one thing that I love that's changed, and it's a silver lining out of the pandemic, is how people are hired today, and why they're hired. Now, part of the reason is what I spoke about earlier, this great resignation, and lots of people going off to do their own things. But another big part of what's happened is companies are now looking beyond the traditional resume. You know, you can be an amazing contributor to an organization, not just because you've been a marketing person or an HR person or a programmer for the last 10 years, and you've got listed job titles at relevant companies over that period of time. But rather today, it's more about employing people based on their skills and based on the culture fit. And I think that's awesome. I think that companies embracing the fact that, yeah, okay, maybe they don't have everything, they maybe don't fit into the box perfectly, but they've got these key skills and they've got a passion and they get our values and they want to align. Well, that's wonderful, because those people are going to want to grow. They're going to want to espouse the virtues of their employer brand as well, become employer advocates, if you will, and long may that continue.
So I'd like to just add to the speakers that we're having here. So as we keep on letting you know, we have our website set up for you to check out all of the speakers. It's ourcommunitybuilders.com. And we have Dan Kelly, who is the President and Chief Executive Officer and the Board of Governors for the Canadian Federation of Independent Business, CFIB. As Bobby mentioned, we have Annette Salfarlie, Senior Advisor of Toronto Transit Commission. We have, who's live with us on our streaming, Christopher Bjorling, and I might be saying your name wrong, and I do apologize if I am. So you can pronounce it for me correctly after. We have, and he is from Fidello. And then we also have Pam Ross, founder of Blue Rebel Works. Debra Christmas, who's an executive partner at Gardner, and Boccalandro, who is the author of Do Good Things at Work. So yeah, we have incredible speakers and panelists that are going to provide you with an excellent overview on, you know, what they're seeing as the trends and possible opportunities and threats for the cultural shifts that are taking place in organizations, and also the Great Resignation. So again, ourcommunitybuilders.com, October 20th, from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, or EDT. Thank you.
Thanks so much for that. And I'm actually going to take a quick moment here and segue. I'm going to share my screen. Okay, I'm going to share something with you guys, and it's something I want to share, which is this. You guys can see this. So, you know, one of the things we talk about diversity, equity, inclusion, which I think is really important, is the power of storytelling. And so I've been working with a couple of DEI kind of executives and organizations on how to do this. But, you know, going back to what Chris said, you know, when it comes to how do we do a better job of this, if we allow people to include their stories, their ideas, their perspectives, if we share stories of diversity, of multiple identities represented in an organization, and we continue to work on policies that drive equity, that's how we create that sense of belonging. And so I think that whole idea of encouraging more stories, encourage people to share what they're going through and what they're dealing with and all that kind of stuff, I think is going to go a long way. There's more people that are feeling empowered, but I think it's up to leaders to empower these voices to share and to be included, and then to create that sense of belonging. So I just want to share this little Venn diagram that I had that I thought you might like that. I'm gonna stop sharing now.
For some reason, it's not showing up, Bobby. But
oh no,
yeah, Maybe
Oh,
you
dear.
can visually describe what you're.
I
Yeah,
thought
no,
about it already here too. Yeah, so I'm with you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you're right. I see now it's not, let me see, it's not working. Oh, it looks like my stuff is frozen, so I can't even do anything here. So you guys keep talking then because, oh, and it looks like let me try and fix this. I think I have an issue with my Wi-Fi here. But you guys continue the conversation while I do a little bit of tech here.
Cool, we will. Thank you. So Bill, you're asking a question. Why don't you verbalize some of the questions that you put up here in our chat?
Yeah, sure thing. So I just added some things in the chat here that we're going to be addressing in the event on I think Lee said the 20th of October, 5:30 to 7:30, everyone, in case anybody didn't get that just yet. So we haven't gone through all of these questions yet and these issues yet. So why don't we just take one at a time and have a little bit of a chit chat about those. We've spoken a bit about how the pandemic has affected cultures in organizations. I mean, I think we could go on longer about that, but we'll leave that one for now. But the next question that we're going to try and answer on October 20th, 5:30 to 7:30 EDT, is what can communities and organizations do better to understand the cultural shifts? So what do we mean by this is things are happening, things are going crazy, things have changed, okay? But not all leaders are able to get their heads around it. And what can employees do to help create two-way dialogue to educate their leaders? What can outside experts bring to an organization to help explain some of these changes that we're seeing in organizations around work patterns, expectations from employees? Yeah, for example, having more relief for childcare, more options to be able to work from home part-time, recognizing the importance of investing in DE&I efforts. Anybody got any thoughts and feelings around ways that communities and organizations can do better to understand cultural shifts?
Well, one thing I think that's really important is surveying and getting the pulse of how people are really feeling. I think leaders need to be vulnerable in their own sharing. There's scientific research that says that, we feel more at ease when our senior management shares their challenges and also opens up the dialogue for us to share ours. So the more kind of open and honest and the culture creates a sense of, it's okay to come when you've made a mistake, or it's okay to come and say that, you felt uncomfortable with how something was positioned. And, so the more that everyone has a softer and more honest and caring approach towards an open dialogue, I think the better we can open up around some of these issues and challenges that may be impacting a positive cultural shift within organizations. I know that there are a lot of people out there that are struggling with their mental health right now, and how employers are responding to that is going to be incredibly important to the longevity. Also, conversations around hybrid work environments and, asking their employees like which work environment works best for them, and, where can we meet in the middle? What's a win-win solution for everyone? And really getting in touch with our own personal core values and how they relate to the values within organizations and where we are. So I think what's going to happen is if our personal core values don't open up to what our organizations are, if they're not in alignment, then I think people will have a tendency to want to leave. So really looking at do you have a mission and vision? Do you have your core values? Are you living them? I think that's the big thing. Is it's one thing to state your core values, but it's another to live them. So are you living your values? That's huge.
Lee, I totally agree. Everything you said was just spot on with different things. I want to highlight a couple things too. When, your use of surveys, because my mind immediately went there. You started with that piece. It's are you surveying, if you're an organization, are you surveying your population to see where they are? From pre to post, there are great ways to do that, different opportunities to do that. So and a lot of people can help you make those happen if you don't know what you're doing. That's one thing. Second thing is then taking action on that. Okay, that's out there. And one of the pieces too that I looked at is, we referenced it earlier in this call, the Great Resignation. As you have all these people looking or leaving organizations, take a look back at yourself. Look in the mirror, that hard look in the mirror, and saying, why are they leaving my organization? Why are they leaving us? What is it that we're not doing? And back to your statement on the values, have we misaligned ourselves? Do we need to update our value statements because we're in a different world now with respect to our people and to our customers and to the space around us? And so maybe it's time just to do refreshes along those lines. And you hit it hard too with mental health. And that's the second time you brought that up today. That the whole mental health challenge of being out and not knowing what is, being fearful of COVID-19 itself, of getting it, or people who've had it, or people who've known people who've passed from it. There's a lot going on, more than just even isolationism. And, as we're all sitting in different rooms here by ourselves, along the line here, there's a lot to be done. And I know some of the other panels I've been on, we've talked a lot about organizations and what they've done to help that, bringing in mental health specialists on occurrences and talking about, hey, this is normal to feel this way. This is normal to go through these things. So there's different aspects that we can do to be more sensitive to everything. And I think, the whole experience really has made us take a look inward to the human value, because the machine doesn't care if it was producing widgets, during the pandemic. What happened to the human factor? And I think that's really where you got to look back at it in detail.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, Chris. So Chris and I, we recorded a panel discussion yesterday for the podcast, for the People in Performance podcast, and a big focus of that was on the importance of being human, allowing yourself to be vulnerable. Before we hit record on that panel discussion yesterday, we all had different things going on in the background in our own lives, and the point is today that's okay. We get it now. We're able to be vulnerable with each other because everyone has been through the pandemic. I mean, obviously to different extents in terms of how it's affected our personal lives. Although to Lee's point earlier, I think everybody's mental health has been affected in some way, and for some more than others. But if we're able to be more vulnerable, it means that we can be more authentic. And looping that back to the point of this event, those are the sorts of people that I want to hang out with, right? Authentic and more vulnerable and more genuine people. And what a big positive out of this crisis over the last couple of years, that we can sit here and share more than we could before.
Yeah, definitely. So, and also just to plug, because everybody's been plugging the event coming up. I don't know most of the people on there, okay, but I was reading through the bios before, and I'm like, this is going to be a fun group to talk to and to listen to. So I'm very excited for the opportunity to delve into more of these areas along that line with each of these, because what I see also is that, well, we have great thoughts, and we have greater thoughts when we become a collective. And to hear the experiences and to say, oh, that makes sense. That makes, perfect sense. Just like us doing a podcast and the aspect of belonging, you always think about it. Okay. But she articulated it and put it out there, our guest did. And all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, of course. That's really what you're going for. And it's just one of those beautiful things. So as we have this podcast coming up, or the event coming up on the 20th, there's going to be some great minds there. And you're going to hear some great opportunities to maybe take and learn and say that may be applicable for where I am right now or for my organization. So just a shameless plug again. So
I love that. I think you're bringing some awesome points forward, and we're all in alignment. I think the speakers that we've brought together are in alignment with where we need to go in the future and how we might get there. So really important. Bobby, unfortunately, is having some challenges. So right now you might see a black screen from him, and he's working to fix that for Bobby. That's another thing. Talk about, I think this is a
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Yes.
Okay, so Yeah, I can't see the Zoom. I can't see the Zoom controls, but I know that Alt A unmics me, so I'm able to speak, but I can't see you guys. I can only look at the replay, which is like 5 seconds behind on LinkedIn, and I can see that we can see the three of you guys, which is great, but that's it. So carry on.
Well, it's kind of funny because, you know, it's a great segue to dealing with technical challenges of, you know, hybrid working environments, right? So it's like where we're potentially looking to try to like have a hybrid event, right? Like where it's like live, but also on virtual, like streaming, right? Like yesterday I was attending a post-secondary education seminar for my son, who's going to be heading off to university soon. And the Zoom meeting quickly capped, and we all had to go on to YouTube to listen live or watch live. And of course, it's not the same experience, right? So it's like those challenges of tech. Yeah, I think a lot of people thought in the beginning, oh, well, you know, running a conference virtual is going to be so much easier than an in-person conference. No, it's not. We can all attest to the fact that it's actually more challenging. It requires more thought and expertise. So yeah, we've and speaking of trends like live streaming, which we're doing here, which takes more capacity on Wi-Fi and our setups. It's a really difficult thing to figure out, but these trends, we're navigating them, and I guess we just have to see it with a sense of humor and patience and understanding and kindness to ourselves that, you know, things don't always go exactly the way we expect they are, but, you know, we learn and we adapt and we become more nimble from these challenges. So Bobby, don't worry, we're with you. Even though we can't see you, we imagine you.
Yeah, and I think
chuckling over it.
And again, I have to confirm you can hear me, right? So
yes,
right. So I mean, one of the things is being able to create a culture where we can talk about failure, we can talk about challenges, we can talk about these things in an open way. I think is going to go a long way, and that's another thing that we have to think about: how are leaders going to be creating those better cultures for these types of conversations, especially when things like this happen.
And things beyond our control, right? Like when you think about that, like, you know, I think one of the things that I've learned over the last year is just really coming to peace with the things that you can't control, because what is the point of worrying about them, right? You just have to go with it. You just have to be able to be flexible and understanding that sometimes stuff goes wrong, and that's just life. And, you know, you got to learn to worry about the things you can control and not stress over the things you can't.
Yeah,
I'm beginning to think that Bobby's internet is absolutely fine. He's making a point here, everybody.
I wish.
We planned it this way. We planned it like this to bring up all these challenges.
Yeah, I'm just looking at it like, look, we put Bobby in a box, you know, and he can't get out. So it's there. Yeah, it was funny. Years ago, I was in charge of a large organization that was putting on events, and we had too many people to actively see the podium where people were speaking from. So we're trying to do this video stuff, and one of the technical people is used to working in a 20,000 seat auditorium, and he's like, well, this wouldn't work, you know, this one, and we're just in a shelter outside there. And I'm like, look, I said, we're camping, you know, it's okay. You know, and I think we've gotten to that point where, hey, we're kind of doing this on our own. We're not having specialists here helping us set up these things and doing this type of stuff. You know, Bobby, you referenced, hey, we learned this stuff, you know, we've done these, and, you know, you're integrating the different groups together, you know, for your feed. But, you know, the reality of it is we kind of learned it on the fly. We kind of learned from each other. And that's part of our experience and our cultural moving forward is like, we're here, we're supporting each other. We're making it happen. And we're not quitting. And I think that's a great message to walk away with. We're not quitting. We're just keep doing this, and it's okay. It's okay.
So I'd love for us to talk a little bit about employee engagement and the employer brand a bit more. We've touched on it slightly today, but it is going to be one of our main focuses for the event on October 20th, 5:30 to 7:30 Eastern Daylight Time, and there's going to be talk around how how cultural shifts have been affected, also have affected our ability to attract and retain top talent. So we're now in a situation where people can work from home, obviously, and a lot of people, if they want to, they can enter the gig economy. Certainly, Lee, Bobby, and I, we've been living in the gig economy for years now. And we're like, oh, gig economy, come on, that's just the economy. No, but the gig economy now is a huge part of the workforce. The contingent workforce is a huge part of the workforce. It's going to become even bigger over the next couple of years. So for employers to want to attract the right people, they have to do extra things right now. And I have conversations with folk who are TA professionals, recruiters, quite a lot, and they explain to me that the challenge to find good candidates these days is so much harder. And the tools that you used before, such as job boards, they ain't working anymore. And so it's really important to try and find new ways and new places to engage with talent and be more open to not having somebody who necessarily ticks all the boxes. I'd be interested to hear from the others here what they've heard, the conversations they've had around the struggles that companies are having with finding talent and any ways that companies are bringing in innovation to make sure that they are attracting the right caliber of people.
I think that's a great question. I think we have to go where the people are, right? So if you're trying to attract talent that, you know, maybe you're missing part of, like, there's an important cultural mix that you're missing. So because, you know what, we need to have workplaces that reflect everyone, right? So you need to make sure that you're sharing and networking if you're in HR or you're responsible for hiring, and also make sure that your employer branding makes everyone feel a sense of belonging, just like Chris had mentioned earlier. So, you know, really thinking with a marketing and also a very, you know, sincere intent to want to make a change, right? So, like, you know, you can't keep doing the same things and expect that it's going to make it's going to magically change, right? So you've got to change things up, right? So you have to look at your whole strategy. Also look at how your employer brand is positioned. Is it attracting the right talent that you want to have on your team to make it a more cultural of belonging and a sense of that, you know, it's like it seems reflective of the community that the organization lives in, works and plays in, right? So those things are really important. And then also the language around job postings, right? That's something that I've been working really closely with employers that submit job postings to our diversity-driven career board on Women in Biz Network, where we're looking at, you know, what are the barriers? Why are women not applying for more positions? And, you know, there's a lot that can be done in how we position job postings. So I think that's something, and also salary transparency, right? How many people are applying for positions and then spending time, you know, not really knowing how to negotiate, and those uncomfortable conversations that could be avoided if we just put salary guidelines and bans on our job postings. It's already happening in Canada and Crown organizations. So these are important trends that I think we're going to see in the future, that at some point in the future, we will have to put salary bans on postings so that it's a fair playing ground for those that maybe aren't as good at negotiating.
Yeah, totally agree with everything you're saying there. You're great for the organization, but I'm going to play a little devil's advocate for you, Bill, on this one. You know, one of the things that we've seen also in the pandemic, you know, you referenced the gig economy when you're talking about this. We're seeing a lot of people that enjoy the freedom of being home and that enjoy that moment there too. And maybe it's also a cultural shift for us to think, well, maybe I don't have to have somebody tethered to a virtual desk someplace. Maybe it's, you know, I'm bringing in, I have a need, I can go get, you know, talent that's there. You know, you referenced an organization earlier, I don't know if it was in this call or another one that you've spoken on. And it's just like, it gives you the chance to preview people and to see stuff and understand and make that selection, because they can give you, you know, different things along the line, and you bring them in for a project. And you know what? you're done. It's great. You had a good relationship with them, but that person may want to live that way. They may like those gig moments where they're responding. I mean, you referenced the three of you on the call. Well, I've owned a consulting company for years. We're gig all the time, so we're doing that whole space there. And so maybe it's just a chance for us to shift and think also, well, maybe I don't have to have the same workforce that I had before. Maybe I can just spot do these things. And actually it's better lifestyle, life work balance for the people that I'm bringing on and for the organization, because the concept of engagement, you can get people. You used an adjective, Lee, when we first started, and I can't. It's because I'm getting older. I'm forgetting it. But the positivism is basically where it was. You're coming in with a positive attitude. You're really upbeat. And sometimes it's really good for people to be upbeat for a project. But if it's their duration of their job, it wears them down, and their engagement factor goes down too. So so that devil's advocate saying, okay, maybe the organization needs to think a little bit in the change of, the world's changed a little, people have left us, and maybe they've left because they want to be at home more. Maybe they've left for this, and they still have great talent. How do we engage that? How do we tap that? How do we utilize it? So I'm just throwing that out there as a thought too.
Yeah, I agree with you, Chris. In fact, another shameless plug for the People in Performance podcast, but Chris and I recently interviewed a wonderful Australian chap called Glenn Donaldson, who works at a company called IntelliHR. This episode hasn't been released yet, but after this conversation, I'm sure you're all going to be itching to get your hands on it. And in that conversation, we spoke about the rise of design thinking. And the design thinking model within organizations, and replacing the traditional waterfall model. And one of the reasons for that is because, like Chris was just saying, it's so attractive to people to have that autonomy that they get with gig work, that companies need to need to switch things up a wee bit. Now, design thinking is awesome for a bunch of different reasons beyond that, but the freedom that can potentially give to an employee to work on a project, to try different things, to learn new skills as well, to be in different teams, to jump in and out of teams, which they perhaps couldn't have done in an more old-fashioned model where it's more hierarchical and it is that waterfall step-by-step process. I think that's a great recognition from a lot of companies that are doing it now. That the gig economy means that people have got another option, another way of working if they want to, and they can probably make more money. Thank you very much. But they don't have that lovely, regular, beautiful salary, that you get with being full-time employed. So if a company can offer the salary, and they can offer some reflection of what one would get as a gig worker in that autonomy, getting a chance to work with lots of different people and share ideas with more people and learn new skills, then those companies are probably the ones that are going to be best set for long-term success. Chris, would you agree with that?
I totally agree with that. For sure. When you think about it, it's there. And also, some people may want to be in that gig economy for a while, and then may want to go settle back down, and it gives those opportunities to grow your capabilities, your resume, of doing different projects, different activities, different thoughts, because you can quickly move across industries. You can, get different exposure and different opportunities along the line that just make you a stronger person if you do want to settle back down in the organization at some point in time as well. So Bob, do we still have Bobby? Bobby, do you have any thoughts on this, since we can't see you?
Sorry, can you repeat the question? I'm still doing some tech behind the scene.
Oh, you can keep working on the tech. We're going to keep going. Don't worry about it. We just want to make sure that you are still live and with us. So you're all good. You're all good. So it's
awesome. Thank you.
Yep. Keep working on it. And if we see you, then we'll ask you real things. So.
Sorry, I had to, speaking of balancing things, I was on the phone with our doctor's office over something for my son. So I had to take that call, and now I'm back.
Real world example right here in front of everybody's eyes.
There you go, eh? Yes.
Authenticity right there.
Yeah,
Chris and I, we were just chatting about the gig economy a bit more, and we're also talking about how some of the lessons from the gig economy have been brought into organizations through models such as design thinking, which allows people to work almost as a gig worker, on specific projects with new teams, and they have a lot more autonomy, and they can just focus on their one thing, and they're not waiting on other things to be done beforehand that you would get in the traditional waterfall approach. And I think that's great. And my point was, more companies that do that, the better. And those companies that get it right will end up with a situation where they have employees who feel perhaps stable because they're getting their regular pay packet, but they're also getting that autonomy and that feeling of creativity and an option to work with new folk on a regular basis. And certainly for folk of my generation, I'm a millennial, even though I've got lots of grey hair, and the Gen Zers, we read a lot. Check, Bobby, check.
Sorry.
We read a lot that autonomy is one of the most important things for millennials and for Gen Zers, right? When they're entering the world of work. So, if they can't get that from a company, why on earth wouldn't they go independent and become a gig worker?
That's such a good point. I think that the more, I know personally, like that's something that I value, and I'm sadly not a millennial. But at the same time, like autonomy is the core value that's extremely important to me, right? So even when I'm working with clients, even though I'm self-employed, I still have clients. I have to make sure that their values match mine, right? I don't work well with being micromanaged. I'm a regular checking in type person. I give updates. So there's no need to be like hovering over top of me. I'm very good at communicating. So, some of those things in making sure that you're attracting the right clients is really important, no matter what age you are. So knowing your values and how they will play out as a gig worker or in an organization. So good point there, Bill.
Yeah, that's huge, actually, what you just said there at the end about being able to select the right clients. So I think that ties back into the discussion around the employer branding and the company culture piece, because it's at the moment it's a seller's market. If you've got skills and you've got the right attitudes, you can walk into a lot of organizations right now. But why would you walk into those organizations unless it's a good fit for you, and unless you want to work with those people? Just like the best gig workers are those that can be selective about who they want to work with and what they want to create. Yeah. I don't know if I'm not sure if I made a question in there somewhere. Maybe I'm just making statements.
Those were just statements, Bill, just so you understand. So yeah, those were just statements. So yeah, it's there. I think the other thing too is that with the shift and everything that's going on there, people, back to the value statements, people historically had been pursuing a lot of times the best name that they could get a job with, and now they've kind of recalibrated and say, and it goes back into, Lee, you hit it really well in a lot of your commentary. What are the values? Do they align with me? Even just you selecting, clients. I always say I don't discriminate. I'll take anybody who can, I'll work for anybody who is willing to pay me, and as long as it's legal, So I kind of have a low bar along those lines. But I agree with you. There are certain people that I prefer to work with. For me, just out of curiosity, or not curiosity, just out of statement. I like the organization that I get a trusted relationship with. I like to have that relationship versus vendor do this, vendor do that. I like to have the ability to communicate and feel part of a team, even though I'm on the outside. And so I think for people to, really kind of understand themselves better, it really is going to make them able to select where they want to be in the future. And I think for people right now, you do get the chance to select more than you did before, because there is such a need for workers because of the resignation, because of just the way life's changed. Most organizations are looking for people, and they're looking for people that fit. And so that's the cool thing. I said it's really an employer's market right now for where they're doing. And I think, or for the employees market, for the employer, I think they really need to figure out how to best market and represent themselves to the working population to get the people they really want. Thoughts?
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I because we're all being so complimentary today, I'm actually going to take issue with one thing you said there today, Mr. Bjorling. Let's just stir at the pot a little bit. So my first job was with a big name corporate. They're a big publishing house in West London in the UK. And as much as I now espouse the virtues of working at places that you're happy in and it's a culture fit, it did set me up in my ability to then move into other jobs, because on my resume, or as they said in the UK at the time, on my CV, they saw that brand and they said, okay, well, he was selected to work at this brand, so he must be a certain caliber, rightly or wrongly. But that did help set me up. And I recently did an interview with someone on the HR Chat show, and they spoke about just this topic. And they said, yeah, okay, it's great to work in startups and to work in smaller companies and have that culture fit, yada, yada, yada. But their recommendation, their advice for young people, people entering their career at the early stages, is still have some experience in a bigger company. Because that's going to give you a different skill set. Whether or not it's still important on your resume, I don't know. I suspect maybe it is, but certainly in terms of those skills, understanding corporate politics, and then being able to communicate with certain folk later on in your career, if you become an independent or in the gig economy, maybe there's still things to be said for that. I don't know. Am I being too polemic here? Who knows?
Bill, you're not off base, and it wasn't attacking, because I think it's really supportive. I think having your big names on your resume or your CV is important. Okay, it has been important. However, I also think that it may not be as important in the future. As we start rolling on, I think you come in with your core capabilities, and for the ability for people to understand that and see that, and how you package that and how you present that. I think that's going to be a player for you. In the gig environment, yeah, who have you worked for? Who have you worked with? People look at my list of clients we worked with and say, wow, that's an impressive list. And it's like, okay, and but there were real people, and I just enjoyed it, and it was fun, and it was good, and it was the same for that company as it was for a smaller no-name company. But yeah, so you have the opportunity there. And I agree, and there's still some counseling about them. I have a son who's just ready to exit law school and enter the world, and the question was, do you go to a small firm which would want you, which you intern with, or should you go to the larger one? And the consultation from the attorneys were, go to the larger one, burn out for 3 years, and then come join us, because you'll learn some stuff. I'm like, okay, cool. That sounds good for him. I look at it from a different perspective, saying, in a large world, you're going to have that name on your resume. Cool. But you may also only work on one client project for that whole 3 years. And you may only be focused on one small area of stuff. And so what was the real value of your learning for that? Because you didn't expand your horizon, you kind of actually curtailed it. So I think, people are going to start, especially with our newer generations, they're thinking differently, perhaps, from where we're at. So is it great to have a good name? Yeah, I think it is, because sometimes when you're in the mix for getting a job, you worked at that larger organization, that gives you the step up. We had an interesting call today about blockchain HR things too. And if you get to that point where we're really thinking about what is it that you can do from a skill knowledge perspective or competency perspective, it may not matter where you worked, may not matter, your degrees you have. If you have that and can be validated, you're really probably one of the best people for the fit. We're a long way from there. Okay. So I think it has to be a happy medium for everybody going forward. And yeah, I'm not trying to discourage if you get a big name, but I think it may be different in the future.
And just one word that you used there that I want to pick up on is, yeah, okay, go work for a big corporate if it helps you out. But my personal experience is when I did work for a big corporate, I did experience burnout to an extent, because I put that pressure on myself. That was the word that Chris used, burnout, because it was my first role. It was a big company. Everybody behaves in a particular way. They've all got the power suits on, and you feel like a pretender because you're learning your craft essentially. And I guess my one piece of advice, if people take one piece of advice from me from this session today, is if you're going to go into a bigger organization earlier on in your career, just make sure you've got mentors around you, and make sure that it's the right fit with your team and with your manager. And if it's not, walk away, because it's not, even if it's just a few years, it's not worth being sad and all the mental health effects that come with that.
Yeah, and sometimes a few years turns into a lifetime.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's such a good point, because you get brought in because you love the benefits, and you see the pension and those sort of things, and then it's hard to leave, right? I know a lot of colleagues that want to leave, but are too afraid to make the change because they have that safety and security, and they're thinking about, like, I'm retiring in 10 years. Is it worth it to not just, be resilient and stick it out, right? So, I think one of the things that the themes around today's conversation is about being resilient. Is it about being strong and knowing what you want? I think, I remember reading when I was graduating from post-secondary, reading What Color Is Your Parachute? And to what Chris said, they recommended going into a small company because then you get to be involved in a lot of different things. But I guess on the flip side, if you work for a larger organization, you can look at joining different committees and also looking outside, right? Like joining a board, doing things like that, right? Like, what are some things that you can do to, as you're going through some of, like, maybe you're bored, right? Sometimes in larger organizations, you're bored, right? Like, sometimes, like, the flip side is burnout, but if your job isn't stimulating enough, well, what do you do, right? Like, what can you do? So, like, you can volunteer, you can create, you can join a board, you can take courses and build on your experience so that you can be a solid performer and then go to what you want. I also think it's really important to work for different types of organizations. Like, in your lifetime, it'd be great if you worked at a non-for-profit, if you're really socially motivated, right? But compare that to working for government and compare that to working for yourself, right? So, like, they all have really important drawbacks and also benefits. So it's like looking at those things. And I think just getting a diverse enough experience in a variety of different roles and variety of different settings and also, gig and non-gig, right? So I think people dabble. I think that's what's different about society now than it was even 20 years ago, is that we all dabble, whereas, not as many people are staying in the same job, the same organization for their career, right? Whereas maybe in the 50s and way back when, people were staying in organizations for a lifetime just because that's what they did. But, loyalty to companies now has changed. And I think that's a challenge that HR is going to really, HR professionals really have to take on. But let me know when you guys want to wrap up. I'd really love to hear what we're going to hear from Chris on what is important that he thinks he's going to share, because, it's really, really grateful to Chris for taking time today to talk to us. So what should we hear from you? And then maybe we can wrap up. Maybe Bill can say a final, whatever he wants to share, and then we can wrap up.
Well, cool. So let me just highlight something too, in the conclusion of your last point before I get into me here.
Sure.
I look at the speakers for the event for the evening of the 20th, and I look at the diversity that they have, not just from person, but also from organization, from government to large business to this and that, and I look at that and I say, what will their input be on similar types of questions along this line, as we look at this. I think when I get together, I'm just going to be, it's going to be a great opportunity for me to learn when we come to be, but then also talk about some of the experiences that I've seen over the pandemic and as we move forward and we see cultural fit changes and along the way, because, the reality comes to be that, everybody's handling their culture a little differently based upon where it's coming from. That's good to see. We've been a proponent of, you need to, with every HR process that you put in place, we've been doing this since the 90s. Okay, it has to embellish and work with inside of your cultural fit. Otherwise, it's not going to be successful. So just to even watch the changing of everybody's culture as we're coming out of the pandemic, hopefully coming out of the pandemic, right? As we're going through that change, it's going to be good to talk about that and what they have done to be successful or feel like they're successful right now. And I think it's actually going to be a change. And then having watched it, when the pandemic hit, it was one thing, and then it's changed, and then it's continued to change. And so I think we're going to see this evolution of it as the people have to continue to try to figure out how to deal with it. And I'm looking forward on our next call is really discussing those options, how it can be done, how it can be, enabled in the organization, how it can be accepted by all. Because you're not going to have a cultural change if it's just 2 people doing it. You're going to have a cultural change if it's everybody there. So establishing your culture, making it a safe place for everybody, that sense of belonging, like we referenced earlier, it's really going to be important. And that's part of the messaging that I'm hoping to get across when we talk. And I'm just really thrilled to listen to some of the other people too. So.
Okay, wonderful. And we've got a fantastic mixture of beautiful Canadians like Chris and like Lee, and awesome Americans like Chris on the show. And I guess I'm a dude with a British accent, so I don't fit either. Although I am Canadian as well, as my shirt shows. So we've got an international lineup for you. And we do hope you can all make it. There is a LinkedIn event page. Okay, lots of places where you can register, but if you don't register anywhere else, please at least make sure that you RSVP on LinkedIn, because it's one click and then you're done, and then we can provide you the information. Although our favorite attendees will be people who RSVP on LinkedIn and also register on the ourcommunitybuilders.com website. So the event, if you haven't heard yet, it happens on October 20th at 5:30 to 7:30 Eastern. And Bobby, Lee, and I are super excited about it. And we've got a fantastic lineup, including the wonderful Mr. Bjorling, who's been very kind enough to join us today. But I think for now we can wrap things up, and we'll see you all in a couple of weeks.
Great. And
Thanks,
Chris,
everybody.
sorry I butchered your name there. I guess the J is silent, and I do apologize.
You can just say Chris Smith. You can just say Smith. And it's actually more of a Y, so it's Bjorling. So yeah, Bjorling.
Bjorling. I love it.
Or use Smith next time, and I'll remember that you thought of it.
Sounds good. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.